Good morning and welcome to the Public File. I'm Doug Thomas, and my guest for this segment is Mark Loutzenhiser. He's the Program Coordination Division Manager for the Sacramento Metropolitan Air District. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good today.
Let's start with a little background on you, Mark. How did you get where you are today?
Well, when I finished up college and my background's actually in chemical engineering with a specialization in air and water, got into the field of air quality. Wasn't actually super familiar with it at the time, but then, as it grew and was looking at all the great work it was doing, it was one of those nice areas of work that make me feel like I'm making a difference for all of those around us in terms of just, since we all breathe air, and it's nice to know that we're doing, having that nice job being able to keep it fresh and clean so we can all go about and do everything we want to do in our lives, whether it's getting to and from work or the kids at play and just being able to be outdoors.
Absolutely. Before we turn the mics on, we discussed a couple of important things. Yeah, we like clean water and we like clean air, right?
Absolutely.
Well, in case someone's not familiar, what exactly does the Sac Metro Air District do?
Yeah, so the Sac Metro Air District we're what's considered to be the local air regulatory agency covering Sacramento County. So we work with both our regional partners, both here in Sacramento, but also the neighboring air districts to reach and stay within our federal and state health-based air quality standards. And we do that through a number of different areas, everything from permitting and inspecting businesses that emit air pollution. So this is everything from, gas stations and, up to power plants and everything that sort of falls in between. But we also have some great programs, like we run some incentives, programs to help people clean up, cars and trucks, getting electric vehicles on the road, getting cleaner diesel trucks, cleaner school buses on the road for our kids. And we're governed by our local elected officials, and our board of directors is comprised of both the county board of supervisors and city council members from representing the different cities here in Sacramento County.
What kinds of air pollution do we typically see in the Sacramento region, and where do these pollutants come from?
Pollution problems here in Sacramento really fall along two different seasonal lines. So during the winter months, we typically have a problem with the fine dust, which we call particulates, or the PM 2.5, and that's due to a lot from wood-burning devices, meaning primarily fireplaces. There are other sources of PM 2.5 as well, but really a lot of it during the winter is when we're burning in our fireplaces, when we get those nice cold inversion layers that come in and just trap that smoke during the ground, versus when we have a nice rain or strong winds that help blow it around and do a better job of mixing. During the summer, though, our biggest challenge is ozone. And ozone is actually caused by pollution from combustion, what we call oxides of nitrogen. So think cars, trucks, if you have a gas-powered, hot water heater, and what we call volatile organic compounds. So think of what you smell from gasoline or paint fumes. And those two pollutants will react with sunlight, which we get a lot of during the summer. Those mix together to form ozone. So again, that tends to be our summer problem is ozone. The sources of that then really is combustion, your cars, your trucks, the lawnmowers, businesses that emit that as well, in mixing with other things that are just around us on a day-to-day basis that, paints, gasolines, just to name, a couple of examples.
Right, and I was going to say, I think a lot of that ozone issue was back in the 80s when everyone was using so much hairspray. Is that part of it, Mark? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the hairspray, what we call consumer products, hairspray, nail polish, those are historically have had those VOCs. So they are a part of that, yes.
Every little bit, right?
Exactly.
Well, primarily, it sounds like emissions from gas-powered vehicles are a big part of the air pollution problem. When we did the shelter-in-place restrictions back in 2020, did you see a decrease in air pollution because we weren't driving?
We did. We've actually done some studies and analysis that are still going on, but we did see a big reduction in our ozone during the first part of that especially, and it had an impact of, say, about 5 to 10% on the overall air quality. So that's actually a very significant improvement, especially when you're getting into, the summer months where 5 to 10% difference is a difference between a spare the air day and a go about your business, everything's good day. So it was very significant.
It goes to show you the difference that can be made just by not driving so much, right?
Exactly.
Well, we're hearing a lot about climate change. How does climate change impact air quality?
Well, it has a pretty big impact, especially as it relates to how it impacts the weather patterns and just the temperature we see. So as we see and experience a lot more hotter days during the summer, that's just more opportunity for that ozone to be forming, from the chemical mix. It takes sunlight, it takes that heat energy. And so just as you do have hotter days and you get more stagnant conditions, you've got a greater chance of that building up. And then also, unfortunately, as we've seen the last few years in particular, hotter weather and drier weather means a greater risk of wildfires. I don't think there's any question in anyone's mind locally just in terms of the impact on the smoke. And that can be happening, unfortunately, any time of the year these days, just where you get those big wildfires and that smoke that gets trapped in the region. And so those are just the big impacts that we see on air quality.
Yeah, it used to be California, we'd have to deal with earthquake season. Now we've got fire season, and it used to be we didn't have to worry about it. But I'll tell you, it's becoming more and more that wildfire season is almost year-round.
It is, and it's really unfortunate that, we almost talk about that there isn't a season for it anymore since, we can get into the early part of the winters if it's been dry to begin with, and it seems to be, coming up at a risk earlier on than just summer. It's, sometimes even a little bit of spring.
Yeah, I remember that Monterey wildfire that was a month or so ago, and that was kind of a surprise. Wait a minute, it's late winter. We're not supposed to have wildfires. Well, speaking of wildfire smoke, Mark, is climate change part of the blame?
I think it's safe to say it is, just because as you are getting hotter conditions and changing weather patterns in general, the vegetation is definitely impacted. If you don't get as much rain and if you're getting hotter temperatures, it just dries things out a lot more and changes just even when you expect things to happen. You mentioned just a moment ago, even when we used to have wildfires, I was born and raised here in Sacramento. I remember before you would only really hear and worry about that in the late summer months.
Right.
Now you worry about it more throughout the year. And, that's just because of the changes in weather patterns and temperature and just everything that comes along with that.
Regarding the wildfire smoke, is there some place we can go for forecasts and to get more information?
There is, and I'm going to share with your listeners a couple of different websites real quick. Certainly our own website, sparetheair.com, which is a great site to go to throughout the year just on air quality data. During wildfire situations, we activate a special wildfire aspect of that page as well. But there's also a newer federal website called fire.airnow.gov. And that's actually a really great website. It's available year-round, but it's actually a really great one with a fire focus to it. And what's nice about that federal website is it ties in both our local monitoring network, but it also takes advantage of a lot of the portable sensors. There's many different types out there. A very common one people have heard about is called Purple Air. But it ties in those type of sensors as well into the map. So it shows both where fires are located, where smoke is, and by pulling in both our network of monitors, but also these portable sensors, gives a really great view of what's going on with wildfire smoke impacts as it's going on. So both our sparetheair.com website, I also want to give a plug for that federal website of fire.airnow.gov.
We all know in the Sacramento area, sparetheair.com, but yeah, that's a new one on me, fire.airnow.gov. And you touched on this a little bit too, Mark. Tell me a little bit more about the district's monitoring network.
Our network is part of a national network, and really what it's designed to be doing is to measure what we call, sorry, I have to throw a few technical terms out there, but what we call criteria air pollutants. So this is that ozone we were talking about a moment ago. This is that fine dust, or what's called PM 2.5, because there are state and federal health standards that we're trying to show that we're either attaining or we may not be attaining yet, but we're trying to get there on attainment. And so the federal monitoring network is designed to take a look at those readings. They typically are hourly averages that we're looking at. They're very high quality sensors, so there's a lot of regularly calibrating and maintaining of that equipment. They help us both collect not only the air quality data, but it's weather data. We analyze trends and what's going on with air quality. The nice thing with them is they're very precise. They're very accurate. The catch is, as you might imagine, something that's so precise and accurate is they're also expensive, so we only have so many regulatory stations.
Right.
And actually, California in general actually has far more than the rest of the country.
Sure.
But still, it's we can't have one of these on every block. It just doesn't, unfortunately, work that way. Which is why, though, there's this great opportunity with these portable monitors, and as well that we mentioned in terms of like the Fire Air Now page. And there's also some other local programs. For example, we are participating in a statewide program called the Community Air Protection Program, which is additional local monitoring that we're doing right now that's focused in parts of South Sacramento down around Florin Road, but that's another program area that's going on as well.
You're listening to The Public File. I'm Doug Thomas, and my guest this morning is Mark Loutzenhiser from the Sacramento Metropolitan Air District, online at sparetheair.com. Yeah, we've heard about those portable monitors, Mark. Why are those monitors so important?
Well, what's really great about them is, one, they're very affordable. So it's something that a lot of just private residents have decided to buy. And even though they may not be as accurate, say down to the decimal fraction on the air quality readings,
right,
they do give very good comparable information on air quality. And the other great thing about them is it's real time.
Mm-hmm.
So, even when you're looking at our national network, because they are an hour average of readings, when you go to our webpage, you may be looking at data that's about anywhere from 1 to 2 hours dated. Whereas these portable sensors are giving information readings to websites, either their own company's websites or the fire.airnow.gov website from EPA. They're giving that information in real time. So even though I may not say, well, okay, is it exactly 20 versus a 22, just to throw out an example of the number,
right,
I'm still going to know, hey, I'm in the green. I'm in a good place. I'm ready to go for that run. My child, my son, my daughter's going off to Little League right now in the spring, soccer in the fall, whatever their outdoor activity of choice is. They sort of know, it's a great time for us to go for a family walk, versus, hey, it's looking a little bit dingy. Oh, wait, what do you know? There's some local portable monitors in my area, and they're saying we're now into the yellow, or heaven forbid, during wildfires, we're getting into a red situation. So it gives that information that allows people to make real-time choices that can help them plan their days and their activities. And that's what's really nice about them. So it's a really nice complement to the broader network system that we run.
You touched on this a little bit too, Purple Air. Is it purpleair.com?
Right. So again, not that I want to plug any one device or another. Purple Air just happens to be one of the most common portable devices. But yes, so a lot of devices so when you do have a company like Purple Air and their devices, they run their own website where people can then choose to link up their personal portable sensors to a website. So when you're looking at it, you may not be looking at just your own device if you have one, but devices throughout the area. And so, those different providers like that, to the extent that the owners of the devices have said they're good with sharing that information is also out there for the public. And most people that have those devices, whether it be Purple Air or Clarities or the other type of devices that are out there, to name just a couple of them, a lot of that information, though, is available for the public, to access as well.
We're all teaming up to try to breathe some clean air, right? Exactly.
And, more information is never a bad thing. It's just sort of understanding the difference in terms of what those purposes is. As I said, our national network has to be very precise, has to be very accurate. We look at it because it really helps us to do our long-term planning, where we add on national standards, state standards. If we're not there yet, it helps us figure out how to get there. But these other devices are great. They don't measure a lot of pollutants. They're really good for particulates, that fine dust.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as strong yet on other pollutants. But as you imagine, say, especially if we've got smoke in the air, then, they're a great tool. And I would probably be remiss, though, to not say real quickly as well, in the absence of a device or a data in your immediate area, though, there is always one monitoring piece of equipment that every single one of us has, and that's our own senses.
Mm-hmm.
As well. So I'd be remiss not to mention that, if you go outside and you're not sure, but you can smell smoke or other stuff in the air, it's there. So you don't always need a fancy device to do it. If you don't have a phone or a way to access, the web and data right away, our own senses do provide a really great tool that can't be overlooked.
I heard something last year that really makes sense and hits home. If you can smell the smoke, you're inhaling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you can see it, it might still be rolling in, but I completely agree. If you can smell it, it's already there. You're definitely bringing it in.
Right. Well, I understand the district has a new partnership with the city of Sacramento, installing portable air monitors in underserved communities. What's involved in that project, Mark?
This is like an added effort to try and bring more of these portable devices into, as you even posed in your question, into our underserved communities to bring them more data. So we're going to be partnering with one or two local community groups as part of this partnership from the city of Sacramento, which will help us with outreach, education, and looking for volunteers, meaning both residents and businesses in these communities that have been historically left behind. And our goal is to try and put an additional 100 portable air sensors into these communities within the city of Sacramento. And that'll be then providing, again, more real-time information. And our one requirement will be that they do go ahead and tie those sensors into the various providers, whether it be like, Purple Air website, the fire.airnow.gov, so that information is available for the public. We'll also be working with an outside company to do a one-time street-level monitoring just to help map out pollution across the broader city of Sacramento.
Where is going to be the best place to find all this data, the air quality data that's collected from the monitoring network? What's the best place to go to find that, Mark?
From a district perspective, would either be our own website, which is airquality.org, and then the other website I mentioned earlier, sparetheair.com. Sparetheair.com is really going to be a better source for our federal monitoring network, but you can even access historical data going back years on the sparetheair.com website. And then if you're looking for some of the newer information, again, we're still in the process of kicking off that city project that I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But when we do start getting in data there, we'll provide links off of our main webpage for the city data coming in and partnering project as well down in the South Sacramento, Florida area. And we already actually have all the data that we're collecting from that region is also on our main webpage of www.airquality.org.
How do different regions work with state and federal agencies on a common set of priorities for air quality?
So the state and federal initially helped set just these air quality standards. So they're sort of the starting place, if you will, in terms of a lot of the air quality goals that then percolate on down to the local level. But really controlling local air pollution falls at that local level. It falls with your local air district here in Sacramento, the Sac Metro Air District, where we then work, because we have a better handle on what's happening locally. Is it vehicle traffic that's a big source of problem? We don't necessarily have as much industry here in Sacramento, but if we were an air district that had a lot of industry, maybe it's industry related.
Sure.
But it's that local level that knows what's going on, that has that connection. And it's also then working with and partnering with state and federal agencies just to proactively work with them. What are goals? What are targets? What are methods to reduce pollution? What is happening elsewhere? And it's also about then, in some cases, working with them for incentive opportunities and being able to bring those incentives to help reduce pollution. But again, bringing that down to that local level and bringing that money back into our local region, both to clean up the air locally, but also to, it also helps the local economy when we can help people, whether it be residents and businesses, clean up the air.
Clean air is always a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Sacramento County has the largest electric school bus fleet in North America. How did that happen?
That's one we don't mind, giving a big shout out both to our local school districts and also ourselves. It really has been a tremendous partnership in that as the electric school buses started becoming a reality even a few years ago and even more so now, we proactively were working with our local school districts, and we were very fortunate that we've had school districts throughout Sacramento that were very motivated and interested as well. And so it was this partnership aspect of bringing in federal grant dollars, state grant dollars, local funding that we have access to, and the school districts themselves being willing partners to come forward and do that. And so it really was a team effort, if you will, of bringing together the different school districts and their willingness and our ability to bring in funding for them. So that's really one where you got to give a shout out to the entire team, because it really did take a regional effort to achieve that accomplishment.
Yep, that's good news. Lots of clean air if you've got electric buses rather than burning some fuel, right?
I harken back way back and we won't talk about how far ago now, but when I was a school child myself and remembering taking that school bus, and granted, when you're young that age and being like, oh, you smell that exhaust. I can't imagine that, this day and age, but knowing now that that really wasn't such a good thing, it's great knowing that our school districts are able to and are in the process, either already or still in the process of adding even more electric school buses and just bringing that cleaner situation for, really one of our most vulnerable population groups, because kids breathe in a lot more. They're so much more active than, we are as adults, and, it just really can impact their long-term development. So bringing that in at that level is just a absolutely great accomplishment.
Yep, that's huge. Absolutely. Well, we're running out of time, Mark. Before we go, what would you like to leave our listeners with this morning?
Well, just that, everyone can do their own part. If you're signed up for our air alerts or downloaded our Spare the Air app for information, then you'll definitely get those real-time warnings during the winter if we're having a fine particulate problem, and during the summer if we're having an ozone problem. And there's a lot of great tools and tips on our websites on what people can just even individually do to make changes on those days, fewer trips, hold off on certain activities. And so just that everyone can do their part, and that there is a lot of great information out there. And definitely visit our website and download the app if you're interested in that up-to-date information.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Mark Loutzenhiser is the Program Coordination Division Manager for the Sac Metro Air District. You can find out more online, sparetheair.com, and the new federal website he mentioned earlier, fire.airnow.gov. Thanks for doing what you do, Mark, and thanks for your time this morning.
Hey, Doug, thank you very much, and thanks for sharing this information with your listeners. Really appreciate it.
This has been The Public File. If you'd like us to cover your nonprofit, email sacpsa@audacy.com, sacpsa@audacy.com. I'm Doug Thomas. Happy Mother's Day, and thanks for listening.